Alright, let's just do that. Okay. You guys all set? Ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. So, as you guys know, we're talking about multiple locations today, and really it's about how we are pushing Multi-Lock in a new direction, or perhaps things that we should have done, or trying to improve methods, and how everything plays together. What I'm going to be trying to do in this video is focus a lot about there we go. Focus a lot about how significant is this? What are the purposes of Multi-Lock? And as much as it's a smart way to grow our revenue, it does mean that we have to take more responsibility in putting clients first and not jeopardizing them. One of the things that we've always had the discussion is how are we supposed to juggle 5 locations or 3 locations and making sure we rank for all of them. We've never took that as a responsibility, and Multi-Lock is now this platform that we're now going to say we're going to rank all the time for all of them. So it's a little bit more of a pressure, and now the marketing manager needs to know how to address that. So before Multi-Lock, we didn't have the extra moz, so citations were just kind of an argument, like, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. Some of the clients, like iTrends, when I had them, the discussion was we're going to cycle through each location once a month, and it was a little bit of a silly approach, because that just basically means we barely caught up. Once you hit like 4 locations, it's impossible to do all the citations properly. By the time you finish like one cycle through, perhaps one you just fixed is maybe a mistake again, or you didn't check it right, or you forgot the verification wasn't done on the second one, so it wasn't very good. And the last thing is that we charge the same for everybody, so again, it didn't make much sense. Like, why would I charge the exact same thing for everyone when obviously a 4-location practice needs more? So now with Multi-Lock, we're doing everything each month properly. And the SEO work is going to include all locations as best as possible. There are problems which we're going to cover, but the idea with Multi-Lock is that's what we're promising our doctors. And there's also a price differentiator, and as much as it's a small cost, it makes a difference. I recently had a client who was trying to do a whole new website, and I told them, please stop paying them multiple websites. You're going to hate me after a few months that your costs are so high. Just put one location with the other and give yourself a new name. And they're trying to do that now, and they're very appreciative because now the cost for them is significantly lower. Rather than another $350 or $550, they just add $50, and they get all the benefits of our SEO work, and they're very happy with that. So this is the approach that our company takes. And there may be a question, when should you do a different website? And we'll get to that as well. But this is a benefit of Multi-Lock, that you can do price differentiation at a reasonable rate. So how is this going to affect my workload as a marketing manager? Well, thanks to Esther and Susan and others, we now have a nicer multi-location presentation page. But there are still other things that we just are trying to do and we haven't done very well, or we've tried and we've tested, and we're going to share some of these ideas with everybody. And I would like to encourage you, part of these drop-ins is we're going to try to develop smarter and better ways to make our websites better. And Multi-Lock has been a problem from the very beginning. What's the best design? How do we make this work well? So I'm going to share with you examples that I've worked on that have done really well. And I'm not going to pick on people who have sites that don't do well, because I think everybody here who has a client with multiple locations, after this presentation will get an idea of what could work well automatically, and you'll know if there's flaws or not. The biggest challenge that I've noticed for these has nothing to do with the SEO, but simply the conversion rate, meaning the call and scheduling call to action buttons were horrible. And I fixed it in some clients, and it drastically improved, and that's going to be one of the big things we're going to share today. Of course, how do you make the SEO better by location, and how do you individualize each page? Multi-Lock and SEO, this is something that you may be aware of. I'm just going to kind of share it with everybody. Each page only has one title and one H1 tag. And if you say in your meta title, I'm in Austin, and in your H1 tag, I'm somewhere else, that's a conflict that doesn't make any sense. You need to have consistency per page, and you can try to wing it with 2 different tags, but then you may be jeopardizing the success rate of that SEO. So the idea for multi-lock is, the exams page will have the biggest location, and the eye doctor page will have maybe a second location. Or maybe you should try other tactics to cover eye exams for all locations. But you have to always keep in mind that the biggest SEO factors are your title and your H1 tag, and that can't be juggled so much. You could squeeze as many keywords as you like inside the page, but those 2 are the biggest criteria, and that's going to dictate much of that page's strength. So one of the things that I used to...
question, Alex?
Yeah.
Why can't you put, with 6 locations, it's another story, but if you have 2 locations or even 3, can't you put the names of both locations in the meta title or in the H1?
You can, but you're splitting the juice of that page into 2. And Google's going to be like, oh, so you're this and this eye exam. But people don't search that way. They want to get, I'm in this location, I want this eye exam. So you're going to split part of that result away, and it's possible that you may not suffer from it, but just thinking about it logically, and if you've seen H-tag meta titles across other competitors, it's almost a rarity. It's almost like a very rare breed to see a title like that, because people know that if you do more than one location in the title, you're stretching it too thin, and you'd rather rank well with one location, be as precise as possible, and find an alternative that would get you maximum benefit for both. I'm going to show an example of what that means, but it is a problem. It is something that when we used to discuss having multiple websites, that was one of the benefits, is I can have a website for location A and a website for location B, and I don't have that problem. But to jam-pack multiple terms, or to split them up between the title and H1, again, you're just making this page less and less relevant. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Okay. So again, if they're all getting the same SEO, why is one location doing worse than the others? That is going to be the SEO question that we will always have to deal with, and you're going to need to know the answers in your back pocket. It is something that our work is going to be doing, and what we're going to be trying to accomplish is to answer that question. What am I doing to make sure that this question doesn't come up, or at least I can address it? The last thing, and this is just, I put this out for Facebook because I get this all the time. Why can't I do multiple pages for Facebook? Now, there is a trick you can do to have one main page and other pages for citations. And I've worked this out with Sabina once for one of my clients. I can share it with you guys if you're really into this. But I will tell you, first of all, it's a major headache. Second of all, you're still going to only have one page that does well. It's purely for citation updates. And the third thing is, whenever you're dealing with multiple social media pages, you're going to end up confusing patients as they navigate. This is more for something that I would say that if you have a legitimate, interesting, good staff at more than one location and they're willing to differentiate themselves, this is a way to go. But 99% of the time, that's never going to happen, and it's going to end up like my practice where they build like 3 pages and they don't even know what they're doing with them all. I just told them, like, well, that was a wasted effort, and you may have had a citation benefit, but now you're confusing everybody on Facebook. So, I don't know if the SEO benefits are worth that hassle.
No. 2 things. One, I'm pretty sure now that, and I've had Sabina set this up where that you can have one page with multiple addresses listed, locations. So that's a possibility. And 2, what do you recommend is like the practice already has a few pages? Should they shut them down, or just if it's already there, it's there?
Well, what you're saying is what Sabina did with me as well. It's where you have multiple locations, but in order to have multiple locations, you have to create multiple pages. And therefore, when you search in Facebook, like my practice iWorks, you'll see 4 locations pop up, and it'll say in that like sub-location page, please navigate to our main page. So it's very confusing. I'm just letting you know that it's something you can do. And whenever I talk to clients about this, it's like, first of all, you can just create a place in Facebook, and how to juggle these citations has been a company problem. As I'm saying, it's generally I would steer away from this topic because one, I don't think Facebook is a huge SEO factor. As long as you have one, it works. But I would say it's more of an AM's question at this point because as far as like a social media and clarity aspect, it's awful having more than one. So if the AM team feels like, oh, we should definitely have multiple pages and it's great for SEO, then you just have to kind of, not discuss it with the practice, but build them on the side. That's what I would do. Don't even mention it. Just do it in the back end because you want the practice to focus on one page. If I have a practice that thinks they have 5 pages and they have to monitor all of them, I'm like, you're going to drive yourself nuts. That's kind of how I would do it. I have a practice there. They have 4 locations. Dr. Holtz, I have to post 4 times for Alcon stuff, and they keep asking me, why isn't it growing? And I keep telling them, because you're not doing anything. You're doing the same post on 4 pages, and your main one is what's going to work. So like you're just copy-pasting everything. So it's like it doesn't work. And then they try doing a one-off, like, on the inner pages, and then it got no traffic. It's just, there's a lot of, when you're dealing with multiple pages and you have the same guy doing all 4 of them, it doesn't work. There's no way to get that done if he's like most of us, we're dealing with office managers. Well, I don't want to get hung up on this. I want to go further on. Again, it's something we could talk about, but it's not really the focus of today. Good questions. So I want to share with you some call to action solutions, things that I've seen and things that I've built, and these are clients that I'm used to. So the first one is Cowichan, and honestly, this is one of those practices where I had a different design in the beginning, and the phone numbers were really clear as well, but we tried using this design at the top. You can see that that's something that I think Steve put together with support, and it has the location you can click on, the phone number, and the location tag. I'm not exactly sure why they did it twice. This one goes to the appointment page. So again, some of these links are a little messed up. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of that was, but it's nice to see there's a phone number, and it changes on mobile as well. I'd say the big problem, though, and this is the main reason why I was not a big fan of this when I first saw this style, is that as you shrink the page, it's hard. It really just gets really squishy at some point on tablets. It looks like that on some tablets, and I'm not exactly. There are ways to fix it, but it's a lot. It's a lot more complicated than it looks. And then once it goes to mobile, we have this setup, which, again, it's not the prettiest look. And but the best thing about this practice is they have one scheduler link, and easy access to the phone numbers, and so the success rate of their calls and people getting in touch with them is very good, and people like using their scheduler. So this format, I would say, works. It's clean, but at certain points, like 3 or 4 locations, it gets very crowded, and for people to kind of automatically take this in and know what's going on, it's hard to know. And also, one of the criteria that we deal with multi-lock is people have different monitor sizes. And while this may be great for a 15-inch monitor, if I have a 13 or a 21-inch, it might just look insane. So that's why I personally like to avoid this thing, but it is an option. This one I did with Dr. Holtz way back when, and I think when I showed it to Amy, she nixed it because it was too complicated. But once I did this for this client, they've always had very good results. But I will tell you, it's complicated. So this is their main buttons here. It's across the whole site, and it gives them their phone numbers and the main locations. Sorry. But when you click on it, it actually opens up to book an appointment, call, and hours and directions. I have it set up for this across the site, and so people can easily choose what they want. And it's really, in my opinion, it's like just simple and easy to navigate. I would say the problem is that you can't really it's really complicated for somebody who's not so savvy with these clicks, and you don't want them to get too confused by it. I'm not exactly sure if this is a useful tactic for more than 4, because at some point it just looks like a ton of buttons everywhere, and it's not the greatest. But when I did this for this particular client, ever since then he's had great results on calls and bookings. I remember the day I turned it on, they like had an increase of like 15% click through on their forms, when before they just had random calls and it was hard to track. So that was a benefit here. And the last one, which also I think a lot of us were using this tactic, but I remember I worked on this with iTrends on their old site, and I think Evan retained it, and I don't know who's working with him now, but I checked and I was happy to see it's still there. When you click the Make an Appointment button, it does a lightbox, and you get to pick which location. And the nice thing is that it's really nice on desktop, simple because it's one button across the whole site, and it's front center what you need. The problem is if you go on other pages, you may not find their phone number as easily. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I'm referring to. So if I go to here, I have no phone number. My only option is to book online, and that's it. And then again, it has the same button here, so it's a little redundant, but you can't call this practice basically unless you go to the page. So it's a little bit of a funny situation. And if you go in their footer, it's just a wellspring of it's really not the clearest thing. So I would say for iTrends, a nice avenue to go would be to clear up their phone numbers and do the same exact approach. And the next thing I remember is that on the mobile side, just got to wait for it to respond. There we go. I don't know why the mobile is so simple here. I don't know if this is how it's supposed to look.
You're not showing it 100%. So
yeah, I know. I'm trying to see what the iPhone X looks like. I think this is what happens.
No,
when
but even as the iPhone X, if you go scroll at the top a little bit over, it says 67%. Turn that 67 to 100. That'll be 100% on the iPhone X.
Well, there you go. Well, it still doesn't look very good. I'm not exactly sure why, but let me just see if this works. If not, I guess we'll have to leave it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it just looks strange. I don't know why. Why anybody would use this style. I think it's just my computer. Fortunately, I can't get you guys the good mobile phone. iTrends is having a fit with me.
Oh, Alex, can I point out one thing that I've done?
Yeah, you want to show me what's the site?
I'm curious what you think. You can go to regionalicare.com.
Yeah, I had a practice who liked that site.
And to
take it out of mobile or leave on mobile?
Do it out of mobile. It's probably easier at this point. I mean, this site's not perfect, but what I did here, and this is something that I guess last year when we all started adding schedule appointment to the GMB, and we had a question with, well, it's we don't want to send directly to Solution Reach. We want them to go to the website and then Solution Reach. So we created a page that says schedule an appointment with a button that goes to Solution Reach. So I've taken that page, and if it's 4 locations like Regional has, I put all 4 of the schedule appointment buttons on that page, and then from the badges, from the header, schedule an appointment, and it links to this page.
Now, where am I supposed to go to show everybody this?
Okay, so if you're on Regional?
Yeah.
So go down to the badges. Scroll down a little bit to the badges, right below the main picture. Click on Schedule an Appointment. Now scroll down. Nice picture, a little bit of text.
And then the appointment links.
And they're right. There's no phone numbers there because they don't have call tracking. So I'm trying not to encourage phone calls, but forms.
Right. So that's good. And you also have it at the same thing on their side. It's a little redundant, but it's okay. A lot of our appointment pages are like this, where we have like the whole form on the left and the right, and it's a little cuckoo. But that's okay. I'll show you guys a little bit what this is like also. I definitely like this approach, and there's a lot of things that we can do to improve that. Good, yeah. The approach you did on the top, though, is a little bit hard to click on, but it's fine. That's one of the challenges is that when you give them all the information on the very top, you have to sort of wonder, why am I giving them another page to click on as well if it's on the top of the site? It might just be simpler just to make an anchor link and push them to the top again, but yeah, I hear it. Okay, so those are those examples I wanted to share with you for that. Content ideas. Location pages are the ideal page to talk about location-rich information. I usually tell doctors, like, let's try to do directions about the neighborhood so I can get those words in there. Tell me practice history, because sometimes their practice moved from a local neighborhood or different streets, and it can kind of increase their location information and help it rank better. And by describing the location and practice, I think it's a nice thing for people to get a little bit more unique information across. I'll share with you an example of how we did that.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
When we do a location page, we talk about monuments and all that stuff. Isn't it a little gray hat? Like, it just seems so silly. And I've had a lot of clients say, like, why do I need this? I'm like, oh, it's for SEO.
To do what? I'm sorry?
To do, like, a page on, like, monuments and stuff in the area,
It's not gray hat because you're talking about things in the area, like, but you have to. It's only gray hat if you. I wouldn't even call it gray hat. I just call it silly to write about, location, like blog, like it doesn't make any sense. What I try to do is I'll try to say we're 10 minutes away from the local museum, and it's really easy to get to us. We're next door to this restaurant and then the big movie theater. Things like that are simple, and it gives people an idea of where you are and with Main Street. But yeah, we're going to get to what you're talking about in a second, and I'll share with you what it does.
Yeah, but
good point though.
It seems like the default approach with Debbie and a lot of these pages is just to write literally a Wikipedia page on whatever.
I'll share with you. I'll share with you. I've done that already. I'll share with you the example in a second.
No, I know. I'm just wondering, why is that not shady? And it seems to work.
These are things that I would call SEO techniques to get ranking, and they may not last. And the worst part is that what's the goal? Oh, I'm going to get them to land my page. Well, if they land on that page, then it's ridiculous. The patient's not going to book an appointment. So you're basically, your whole perspective is out the window.
Right.
You built a page that's not going to do anything. So at the one hand, I wouldn't call it gray hats when you do things that are bad for SEO or penalties. What you're doing here is you're building a page that lacks any clear direction just for ranking aspects. And so it looks good to the doc because they're ranking, but in the back of your mind, oh man, this is like such a bad idea. So the goal is, I would say, just to present the idea back to you that whenever we develop these pages, how can we do it smarter? But we should definitely still try it because there's been some good results from it, which I'm going to share shortly.
Alex, one other way to do that is, as opposed to creating a new page, below the fold on the hours and location page, that you build up some information there about the doctors, about the special services, about the special frames they have, and a little bit about the town that they're in. I think it's less fishy if you do it that way, and it's going to get people to the page that you actually want to convert them from.
Right. So I'll share with you an example because I think, you guys are asking the question that I already put in my example here. So I did this for my metro, and it's Olivet, Missouri, and they kept asking me to rank, and boom, I ranked them number 3. And they never ranked there before. So next time I speak to them, they're like, we're ranking number 3. It's amazing, right? So I click on the link, and they're going to get all happy, and then, it has all this here, and the first exact sentence is, the city of Olivet is near the picturesque Missouri River. Just like, okay. And it goes through this little sentence here, but then it goes right into the practice description. Okay, I get that. And then it just talks about some of their services, which is reasonable, Google Map links, and then links to their practice. Nothing shady. And boom, it ranked number 3. If I showed this to a doctor, I don't think they'd be upset about it. And how did it rank number 3? Because it's in the title, it's linked all over, we have all the terms we need. It's a very SEO page, but it ranked that they never ranked before. Okay, so this is like something I would do rather than having a whole history of Olivet. just say a little sentence. I thought that was like very nice. Okay, so it's a little bit silly, but whatever. People, I don't think that'll offend anybody. But if it's like 3 or 6 paragraphs, okay, that's a little much. And oddly enough, they added the word center here, which isn't really the practice name. I'll have to make a note to get rid of that. But anyway, so that's an example of, like, I think, a reasonable page that's not going to offend the practice. They got ranking number 3 that they never had, and all's good. But you guys could say, I'd like to do it this way in different ways. A practice that Evan would probably want me to demonstrate, which I was a little hesitant to do this, but I'll just share it with you quickly, is Hartsdale. The reason why I'm hesitant to do this kind of structure is because I think it's overkill. He put this together initially, and I kind of took it over, and it goes through the whole eye doctor, and it gives their logo, and it has their address and everything, and then it goes on and on and on and on about their products, like it's like a mini website. And I personally would never do this, and I think Evans told me it was a little bit overdone. But to do something like this per location, I think, is also overkill, because now you're just making a subsection like of that site. So on the one hand, you could, like, for example, that example I gave before for like Olivet, Missouri. If I did a page, I would do like, Olivet daily contacts, or Olivet, contact lens fittings, Olivet eye exams, and Olivet eyewear. I guess you could do that. I just think it's a little overkill. It might be a little too much, and I don't know how Google will rank it, but it might be something you guys might want to do differently, and you could sort of track it, see the results. So that's, again, these are things that you could do. I'm more just giving you ideas of how we've done this. Okay, so Dr. Holtz, I'm going to go back to his site, and I'm going to just kind of quickly show you just a quick example and move further on his site. On locations, this is a standard approach I did where, sorry, am I kind of freaking out? But here you can see there's 4 locations with their numbers and making an appointment, a short paragraph, and it used to have a map down here. I don't know why it's not loading. His footer has this in-between footer, so if you guys have multiple locations, it's really clear and easy to see. And on each of these locations, Lenny actually was the one who pushed a lot of this content through, and it was really nice. He put all the information up there. He wrote a lot of information. I worked on putting these buttons together so that they can make the appointment for this exact page. I talked to the doctors, and I got to them to tell me which doctor was at each location, so they know if they're going to Richmond Heights, these are the doctors who are there. And Lenny had kind of collected some of the information. We wrote unique content per section. So, like, this might be the idea you guys may want to do. You may want to go, because these are pages that are very much designed per practice location. But it's a lot of work to do this, but it does look nice and it does rank. Okay, so we talked about highlighting the doctors and staff, the services, using custom images per location, making sure you get shots of everywhere and videos of each location, testimonials that include that location, and you want to link to it with social media if you can. Like, here's a post of our doctors for the holidays on this location. Like on that example I just showed you, you can review that location online because every location has its own GMB. So things like that are helpful to make these individual location pages really stand out. Again, design and nav. This location over here is a specialty of mine, but they're one of the bigger practices I have. Again, we did the same sort of layout, 3 locations, hours. Here's the map that I want to share with you. This is a map that AMs can use as part of Google. It gives people an idea of how their locations are set up. It's a nice idea just in case they have more locations. On each of their location pages, I've been hammering them to help me. Like, they got the nice pictures. That's something this practice has done really well with. But they have no content whatsoever. And it's been a pulling teeth to tell me, like, anything about these offices. Okay. New design by Esther. Okay, we talked about that. So nav, we've already seen a couple examples of including in the footer, in the main menu, making sure that people can choose each option. In the sidebar, you want to make sure that people can get to each location and not be redundant if possible. And internal pages by location. I don't know how often this is, but I have a practice where they offer some services at some locations, and it's really, I think, a good idea to make sure that if one service is only at one location, you emphasize that so people know that they should take the 15-minute drive to location B rather than booking it at A just to be told to go to B. So again, these are ideas. Okay, so common questions just to kind of finalize the idea. What do you do with multiple websites for location? Meaning, I have a doctor, Dr. Consor. He wants to do this specialty macular degeneration site, and I've been trying to hammer him not to do that because he doesn't have more than one location. But what he told me is he actually, in his office, it's a single location with 2 addresses. So I was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to build for you 2 GMB listings because they're 2 separate addresses, give you 2 Twilio numbers, and you can have another GMB which won't conflict. And he also has a separate domain name. Same thing with this practice over here, vsde.ca. See if this works still. This is a practice of mine who they have 3 locations now, but they decided to have a separate website for this office because it's a specialty office. It's something that's very unique, and they offer very high-end services. I'm not sure where the logo is, but probably my computer's on the fritz. But in short, when you do a separate site, you want to make sure it's extremely unique and it has a separate address by all means, and it has to be only a worthwhile cause. Another option for multi-location is I have 2 practices that have satellite offices. When it's a satellite office, I almost don't do anything for it, and it's a very big question whether we should even do multi-loc, because as much as it does help citations, a satellite location means they're in the office like once per week for like an hour. It's not really worth all that effort. And the last thing is just like a heads-up question is whenever you're doing multi-loc with multiple locations, how do you upsell it? How do you bring it? Fortunately, we're making this a requirement for anybody who signs up with us. And I would say the big thing that you have to kind of tell people is, as much as this is going to increase your cost by like $200, you're getting so much more work out of this and so much more results from this that it's so much worth. It's much, just the $50 extra is totally worth it, because just from all that we've shown, there's a lot more work involved. You have to balance everything well. SEO has to be done with a very keen eye, and writing has to be done. And there's a lot more work just for $50 that you'd probably charge normally $200 for, or something like that. So this is where I would say that if you're going to do this right, there's a lot of planning to be done. Okay, so any questions, things that you guys want to go over? Okay. Well, feel free to ask me anything if you guys have any.
Sorry, Alex. A couple of things.
Yep.
Are we we're going to get a list, Yona, I guess more Yona, we're going to get a list of like which client is getting addition and billing, and so we can talk about it then. So like we'll know to bring it up. And in general, like is the bottom line is that they're paying the extra for like the SEO work, because now that we have Yext, like what are they paying extra for exactly?
That's what I'm trying to say. If you just tell them the $50 are for Yext, then Yext is normally like a $40 a month service, and you could just tell them that and not do any of this work. However, you're also, it's not going to do as well, and these are things that you can do for that practice to give them that extra boost and make things look nice, and it could be a project, and these are things that are essential for ranking in those locations. Just relying on the Yext cost, I don't know if it's going to make people happy, because some people are not so clued in as to how citations will make their practice rank. But stuff like this looks nice, and they kind of get the idea that you're doing a lot of work for them.
Mm-hmm. So, okay.
So the little extra things of like the design work is the extra.
Yeah, and like making sure your citations are done properly, but like to do whole write-ups and a lot of projects, that's never going to happen. And so, if they say, why do I need your $50? I'm just going to do Yext myself. They're saying, well, we're managing a lot more because of that, and it's not worth it for you to jump off and do Yext on your own because we're including a lot more. And it's really just a barely higher cost. You're making a lot more in your return for this. That's really the key in that pitch. Because if it's all about we're just doing Yext and it's $50, they're going to be like, what are you, nuts? Like, why would you charge more for something I could pay less for? So you have to tell them these things. Like, there's all these things involved.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of clients kind of get that there's going to be a company package, so they're already suspect the costs are less. So if you don't do this kind of discussion with them, and you just tell them like, it's just we're doing citation work, they're going to be very like, they're going to be like very and like, you're just ripping me off,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but as far as like which client, I mean. You guys should know who has multiple locations, and you should pretty much just let everybody know who has a multiple location. That if they're not aware,
well,
that multi-lock
I know there are some who are already paying for multi-lock. It's only the old ones that were grandfathered in or whatever now have to start paying, right? So I don't know which ones were paying and now or were never paying, and then they're going to get this like new bill, and then I should just. There should be some sort of notification or
right, and if they start billing like a satellite location office, that would really tick off a few practices because like they're barely there. It's not even really an office. They don't want you to do SEO work. They just want it on their website just because it's there. So to just bill everybody who has a multi-lock with a satellite office, I have one doctor who has 8 satellite offices. So he's going to pay us like $400 when he's like never at each location. He doesn't even want SEO for them. He just wants SEO for his main office. So it's not exactly fair for him to suddenly increase costs when it won't do anything for him. By the way, a satellite office means you're typically in a giant, like, huge building where there's like 400 offices and you're just one of them. So to do SEO on that is almost pointless. Basically pointless. So we have to be also very smart about where we're billing and not to let SD or the management get carried away with some of these offices. If they do, it'll be a lot of complaints. Okay, all right, but it's a good idea. I think Josh has a good point to get a list. I'll make sure to remind Yona, see if we can do that. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, let me know later. I'm around.
Yeah, and also if you have specialty. There's a bit of a confusion with Yona and me and Joe about low vision locations, but they're really just like places the doctor goes. So if you have any of those types of doctors, just make sure that they don't start billing for like a location they like pop in once a month to like see if
that's a satellite office. That's what I would call a satellite office. You're just popping in and out. Same exact issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.